In 1961, the U.S. government became a player in car entertainment systems as the Federal Communications Commission approved the broadcasting of FM stereo programming.
When they first came out with it, it was a hard sell because AM had worked fine for 20 years in the car radios, and there was no reason to switch.
A few people had noticed the higher quality FM stereo signal, and companies like Motorola and Delco started making AM/FM car radios in 1963.
I remember some of the early FM stations. They sounded great. The signal sounded terrific when you could hear them because there wasn't a lot of power. But most of them were just pretty much classical or beautiful music.
Most people got their first introduction to FM by listening to an FM converter. When you turned it on, it switched your radio to FM.
Soon after that, FM radios became available from most American car makers as optional equipment. But now, people's demand for better rolling sound created a market for something revolutionary. This required a truly forward thinker, Earl "Madman" Muntz.
I have a 4-track Muntz stereo tape here. It was made about 1964.
Muntz discovered car tape decks in the early 1960s, purchasing the rights to a 4-track tape format called the Fidelipack. Muntz soon owned both ends of the deal, manufacturing the playback units and offering pre-recorded cartridges. Very soon, 4-tracks caught the eye of another entrepreneur, William Powell Lear. Lear was famous for his contribution to corporate aviation, namely the Learjet. But in 1963, he took a ride in a car with a Muntz 4-track tape deck, and he got an idea. He became a distributor for Muntz, but he also started work on an improved version, which featured, among other improvements, 8 music tracks instead of 4.
The 8-track tape was in production, in factory production, from 1966 into the early to mid-70s.
In a move aimed directly at the youth market, especially Mustang buyers, Ford included on their 1966 option list some new items: built-in 8-track players. Ford also did a deal with RCA Victor, who made available their entire record catalog on 8-track. Ford installed over 65,000 8-tracks in 1966. General Motors and Chrysler would follow suit a year later, with similar sales success.
The next improvement on the 8-track tape was the quadraphonic sound system, in which there was 4 tracks instead of 2 for stereo, where you had a left and right. You had 2 lefts and 2 rights, and this is an improvement on the 8-track that didn't last very long.
But even though the quality of the equipment was getting better, AM radio was still king, at least for the moment. 2/3 of the cars on the road still had just the old reliable AM radio in the dash. But the horse was out of the barn for big sound on wheels, and there was a huge explosion on the way. We'll be back to check it all out when Rolling Thunder, entertainment on wheels from AM to XM, continues. The 8-track was a quantum leap in rolling sound, but the format was far from perfect.
8-track was very convenient in some ways because, you know, you could put a tape in and it would just loop continuously. It also had a lot of problems. It had track alignment problems for sure, where you'd hear crosstalk from adjacent tracks. Plus, the way the cassettes were actually constructed, eventually they would wear out, and they didn't have the best sonic quality.
But even though 8-track tape was showing up in all the coolest cars, AM radio still ruled, even with its puny sound. Some cars had built-in or aftermarket gadgets that helped out the thin AM sound with a little electromechanical trickery, like reverb units.
Reverb was a way of adding what we would call a little hint of echo. Basically, it would delay the output of the sound so it sounded like it was in a much larger area, say a concert hall or an opera hall.
But the growing number of FM broadcasters were busy creating programming that appealed to a wider audience and signal strength that would reach the edge of town.
This is when FM stations started programming younger music, going after that younger audience with pop music. And also they had a lot more power.
By mid-1967, the summer of love was upon us, and the music coming from this social upheaval was as important to the baby boom generation as their next breath of air. Though the 8-track would survive into the early 1980s, another tape format was quickly gaining ground.
Cassettes were much better because of A, their size. I mean, they were roughly half the size of 8-tracks. The material they were using was heads and tails above 8 tracks as well, better quality tape. The heads in the units had also changed considerably with new advances that allowed them to pick it up a lot better without any interference or distortion.
Small cassettes made it possible for you to record your own. It made it possible for you to carry large amounts of music in a small space.
But the cassette had two qualities that made it more attractive than 8 tracks. One, it was smaller, which again meant that you could pack more music along with you. Two, you could actually go backwards and forwards with cassettes, which you could never do with an 8-track. Meanwhile, laboratories full of electronics engineers around the globe were working on the cassette's sound quality. As the electronics got better, the gap was closing between the old and new formats. But what finally put the cassette over the top and drove a spike through the heart of the 8 tracks was a noise reduction process that took the name of the man who invented it, Dolby.
Cassettes were, in my opinion, were a huge improvement. The frequency response characteristics, the tape hiss was also substantially reduced. The introduction of Dolby, Dolby B, Dolby C also had a big impact on the cassette.
With the introduction of the Dolby Eyes stereo cassette, rolling tape systems were here to stay in just about every car on the road. Plus, thanks to years of technological innovation from the sound system manufacturers, the consumer didn't ask what's next anymore. They were now asking, how much can I have and how soon can I get it? When we come back, America's appetite for entertainment on wheels gets out of hand on this American Muscle Car special report. During the 70s, after a few years of furious R&D, the aftermarket had caught up with the car makers. A few years earlier, the best rolling sound came from the factory. Now, car owners could get more power, better quality, and better convenience from a corner specialty shop or out of a catalog. Meanwhile, the FMers were improving their sound quality and expanding their programming. Now, the FM signal was far better than AM. And there were almost as many youth-oriented FM stations as AM stations. AM's days as a music medium were numbered.
First 6 or 7 years of my career, I worked as a disc jockey at an AM radio station because AMs were just huge then. First FM I worked for was about 78 or 79. The first big FM that I worked for was in New Orleans in 1980. But now when we came to town and first put this FM on the air, it was a beautiful music station for years and years and just about had no ratings. The biggest station in town at that time was an AM station. And within 1 year, we had knocked them off and we definitely owned the market.
Better quality sound from tape and tuners now led the consumer to demand more power and more features in their rolling systems. The one-box approach to auto sound, which combined the amplifier, tuner, and tape transport into one chassis, which had to fit into a standard hole in the dash, didn't allow very many improvements in any area. The solution was to make individual components.
People discovered that to get more sound or more volume of sound out of their systems, they needed to have more wattage.
The 2-knob radio and a 6x9 just wasn't cutting it anymore for people.
By the 1980s, high-powered component amplifiers were putting out astronomical volume levels and much deeper bass response, which fit in just perfectly with most popular music. In addition, equalizers allowed custom tailoring of the sound, and component speakers worked their way from the home audio scene to the car, opening up the world of subwoofers and bi-amping to the motoring public.
Now you're finding, front and rear stage on cars. Subwoofers are separate, so you need the amplifiers that are dedicated to this type of speaker that you're using.
Just 10 years earlier, state-of-the-art car stereos belted out Jefferson Starship and Led Zeppelin at a whopping 4 watts of power. But now, it wasn't unusual for car audio systems to crank it up 100 times that number. So what happens when rival car stereo enthusiasts want to find out who has the biggest and baddest system around? Sound-off competitions, of course.
Well, dBDrag racing incorporates all of the elements that I enjoy. It has cars, it has music, it has competition, it has girls.
By 1985, car audio had become a sport, and it was creating its own stars. The cars themselves were becoming stars. The granddaddy of them all, however, was the Terminator. an outrageous 4-ton 1960 Cadillac hearse built by Wayne Harris in 1984.
One of the things I wanted to do with the Terminator was make it a show vehicle. Not only did I want it to be loud, and it is loud, like rock concert loud, and it's not just bass. I mean, it has full spectrum, high output capability. But I also wanted it to be something that I could put in a parking lot or take to a car show, and it would just attract attention. The car is lowered, it's 21 feet long, you know, it's a hearse, but it also has these giant 40-inch spectrum analyzers on the side of the vehicle, in the side windows, and at night it's the ultimate cruiser.
This Mac Daddy Caddy had it all, including 4,280 watts of RMS power. It has a security system, radar detector, a VCR, and even a CD player, which was a rarity at the time. As well as winning enough awards to fill the Terminator's cargo area, this incredible piece of work also helped launch Harris's career, much of which was spent at Rockford Fosgate, where he became the Director of Research and Development. He is now the president and founder of dBDrag Racing Association, which promotes car audio sound-off competitions.
We have 13 classes of competition in dBDrag racing, and they range from your daily driver to the equivalent of a top fuel dragster. And we take the 8 loudest cars in each class. At the end of the day, those competitors advance to the elimination rounds.
I used to want to be a rock star when I was a kid. I can't sing and I can't play music, so why not be the loudest? That's why I do it. I just have a love for music. I just love my stereo. It's sick, but it's what I do.
During the elimination rounds, the cars go head-to-head. We do quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals. The winner of each round advances to the next round of competition, and the loser is eliminated from the contest. Well, currently, dBDrag racing is taking place in 54 countries around the world. We're tracking over 35,000 contestants right now, and we really leverage technology. The competitors actually can compete, and then they can go on our website and actually see their standings and see how they stack up against other competitors.
When the American muscle car returns, the guys in the lab hit the world with another little toy, which obsoletes just about everything that had come before. The CD player. Stay with us for more of Rolling Thunder, an American Muscle Cars special report.